of former policies. Give me something, please, nice and loud. Val, thank you. Sure, using the military to get somebody out of our way, right? So it was previously the Native Americans, now it is overseas. Good, good. Give me something else, Ventura.
I would say like the annexation of new territories, like after conflict, like with Hawaii.
Okay, so annexing, gaining new territory, that's a continuity. Okay, I agree. Georgie, how else is this a continuity? How? More regulations? How is that a continuity, though? How is that continuing prior policies? You don't know? So has a continuity, then? Carla?
Something like along the lines of the Monroe Doctrine with the Roosevelt corollary.
It's very similar to the Monroe Doctrine in that we are going to regulate our side of the globe. The Western Hemisphere is ours. But also, I'm going to build on that and say that it's also slightly a change from the Monroe Doctrine. Because the Monroe Doctrine said, Europe, stay out of our business. Imperialism says, we're going to make more places our business. So not only Europe stay out, but also we're going to make sure that we are the international police force for the Western Hemisphere. That if Nicaragua has a conflict with themselves, we'll go solve it. Nothing to do with Europe. If we want something done in Latin America, we'll go do it. Nothing to do with Europe. So it's an extension. It's a next stepping of the Monroe Doctrine as well. So it's both a continuity and a change regarding the Monroe Doctrine. Good point. How else is this a continuity, please? Mr. Vargas.
Inflation causes panic, for example, during the Great Depression.
Okay, inflation causes panic. That deals with imperialism?
Oh, no.
How else is imperialism a continuity? There's another clear, easy one we're missing. Scarlett, go ahead.
Manifest destiny.
Manifest destiny. Manifest destiny believes, what's the underlying belief that fuels manifest destiny? Keep going.
Oh, that it's our will to like expand.
Who's our?
Americans.
Who's American?
Like white people.
There we go. So the continuity that's clear here is white supremacy. Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna add on to that, like also with the idea of like social Darwinism,
Yeah.
which like kind of like emulates the white man's burden in a sense.
1000%, right? Social Darwinism, business-wise, will become the white man's burden internationally. There's a slide today titled International Darwinism, so you've already done my job for me. Thank you, Scarlett. I'll go home. You want to teach my 5th period too?
Might as well.
Thanks. So there is a huge continuity in terms of using white supremacy to justify taking somebody else's land. Whereas before in Manifest Destiny, it was the Native Americans saying it is our destiny to spread out sea to shining sea, Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast. God has given us the right to this entire continent. Well, now that continent's done. We've got the whole thing. So now we use that same logic, that Manifest Destiny, and we're going to call it the white man's burden internationally. And it's our duty to spread civilization, to spread religion, Christianity in this case, to spread democracy, to make the whole world a better place that looks more like us. Now take 20 seconds to talk to your partner. Why is this a change? What about imperialism is a change? 20 seconds, go.
I put that it's a change because it violates like consent of the government,
Yes.
as well as like self-determination and like anti-colonization. Because like although we want to like spread our ideals to these other places, but we're actually limiting their freedom. For instance, like Puerto Rico. What's funny?
Yeah, I think that like the world power has changed because before there was not as much, but now there is a lot of that because of different
Excellent.
annexation.
Mr. Ventura. How does it change?
World power?
A world power. It increases our global presence. That's a huge change. Go.
I was going to say a change as well because of like I think it's Washington's farewell address where he says to stay out of the world's problems.
Check you out referencing Washington's farewell address.
And we're like, I guess weaving our way into everybody else's business and like the founder of our country, kind of, not really the founder, but like
Founder, absolutely.
Kind of told us just like a way to be successful is to stay out of other people's problems.
And yet here we are getting involved in these problems. What else did he warn us in that farewell address? Let's see, he said, avoid political parties. That lasted a really long time. And avoid sectionalism. It's going to cause trouble in the country. That lasted about 12 years.
Right.
Yes. So here we are. It's the final, I argue, the final strikeout of Washington's farewell address. Strike one was political parties, because that happened like as he's still president. Strike two, sectionalism, Civil War. Strike three, avoid foreign alliances. And here we are. We've now struck out on Washington's advice. Thankfully, by now, Washington is long since dead. So he's not there to be that disappointed father where America has gone. Good point. How else is this an example of change, though? There's a really good one that's valuable as a starting point for today's conversation. How is this different than like taking over this land and kicking the Native Americans out? Josh, go ahead.
I want to say the open door policy.
Okay, the open door policy. How so?
Because like instead of just like conquering the land, they kind of like inserted themselves in the culture within China.
So getting involved in China economically, instead of conquering land, more of an economic type of imperialism. Is that what you're saying? Fair?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Maybe kind of to expand overseas.
Overseas is a big change. Obviously, it's not just the continent anymore. Good. What else, though? What else is different about imperialism that we have not done yet? Because you're right and you're right. Go ahead, take a shot at it.
With the help of industrialization.
Industrialization is a big factor, absolutely, that we need, because of industrialization, we have a need to spread out and an ability to spread out. What else? What do these places possess, or what characteristics do these places have that our prior conquest or spreading out or manifest destiny did not? What's different this time? And this is what's going to make it imperialism, not just expansion. What's different about, say, the Philippines, Guam, Puerto Rico, Cuba to a small extent? What's different about that than was the Mexican Cession or the Louisiana Purchase? Josh, your hand popped up.
I'm not too sure, but I think it's like they're already like established states.
They're already established with what? Sure. What are they established with, though, these places? What do they have? Maybe
Colony.
you're getting there. I like it. What do these places have that, say, the Louisiana Purchase or the Mexican Cession did not? Government. Culture. Society. Economies. People. It's important that we note that in spreading westward, who was on our way here? The natives. Are there a lot of them? No. So it's not very difficult to just justify internally, well, we spread out and then they moved out of the way, so that's our land now. In this case, you're going to places that have established sedentary cultures. Right? The Native Americans in their more tribal, nomadic lifestyle can just move somewhere else. Not that it's okay or justified, it's not. But in this case, nobody can go anywhere. In this case, you're taking over not just land, but people. You're not just taking space, you're taking societies. You're not just taking resources, you're taking culture. So imperialism and expansion are very similar in that both require spreading out, using influence. The key difference for this, the key change in this continuity versus change, is that now you're doing conquering. Instead of spreading out, you're putting people under your control. Keep in mind that up until the Dawes Act, there's no real desire to put the natives under our control. Just put them out of the way, put them out of the way, put them out of the way. So we can look at more so the Dawes Act as a precursor for what becomes American imperialism. The Dawes Act is an example of imperializing the Native Americans, putting them under our rule. Whereas prior to the Dawes Act, it's just put them out of our way. Take the space, not the person. Once you become kill the Indian, save the man, Carlisle School, Dawes Act, Native American policy. That same policy then is going to apply to the Philippines, as we'll read. It's going to apply to the Puerto Ricans, to Guam, to Latin America. And that's different, because now you're not just taking land, you're taking people. You're creating an empire, you're not just expanding your space. Big difference. Continuity and change. Let's go. Today's title, American Imperialism. It's lecture 1 of period 7. Here is your key concept. It is there if you are curious, but the keys are new territorial acquisitions and ambitions are going to heighten public debates. So today we're going to examine the pro and con argument, look at the legacy of imperialism and see where America stands in 1915 that it did not stand in 1898 and what that means going forward. Your prompt is as follows. Jesus, can you read it for us, please?
Evaluate the extent to which America's imperial ventures from 1898 to 1910 demonstrated change in American policies and society.
Cool. So it's a demonstrate change prompt, right? If you want to get that argumentation point, you'd have to talk about change and continuity. Now we're talking. Now we're looking at that extra point in the DBQ. Here's your outline. Talk about the origins, why, where imperialism comes from, what are the reasons and causes for it to start when it does. We'll look at 2 brief wars, the Spanish-American followed by the Philippine-American Wars. We'll look at the policies and arguments for and against imperialism. We'll look at the policies of 3 different imperialist presidents to an extent, Roosevelt, Taft, and Woodrow Wilson. And you'll write me a thesis statement with context to prove to me that you learned something, anything, ideally this, today. Fair? All right. Let's take a step back in time and look at our foreign policy in the first part of the 19th century, the 1800s. Thank you, Valerie. She's already gotten us off on the right foot by pointing out Washington's farewell address. Hey, America, we just left Europe. Why did England's control suck over us? Well, because they were broke from fighting a bunch of European wars because of alliances and problems. So hey, here's an idea. Mind your own business. Stay out of Europe's affairs. Europe's going to have their problems. Europe's always had their problems. Mind your own. And we do, to a small extent, right? During Washington's presidency, we stay out of European affairs. Specifically, which affair? Yeah, the French Revolution, right? This proclamation of neutrality sets up a foreign policy of neutrality. Of, hey, I want to trade with you and you. Right? The Embargo Act, the Non-Intercourse Act, McCone's Bill number 2. All these examples of us trying to demonstrate economic neutrality. Yeah, I know you're fighting with each other. That's cool, but I want to make money off both you guys. So if that's cool with you, done. Doesn't always work, right? The Embargo Act, Snapping Turtle. Sometimes it bites us in the ass, not them, economically speaking. But it's always an attempt to keep ourselves militarily, of course, but also economically neutral. It's a big piece of following Washington's legacy is keeping ourselves economically neutral and not getting involved in other countries' problems. Under Jefferson's attempt to more liberalize the world, we have one big debate, foreign policy-wise, and it ends with us buying Louisiana. Not conquering Louisiana, not fighting the French for Louisiana, but using our diplomacy and our economy to settle our foreign disputes and the Louisiana Purchase. Not fighting anybody, just trying to get some land. As noted, we pass, or we approve, we declare the Monroe Doctrine in 1820 that says, Europe, you stay out of our hemisphere, and we will keep our crazy democratic ideas out of yours. Right? Europe is going through a series of post-French Revolution aftershocks, in which there's some democratic uprisings, and they're worried that America's going to support them. So the give and take is, you keep your imperial ideas out of us, we'll keep our crazy democracy things out of yours. And the Monroe Doctrine holds for a long time. Keep in mind, at this time, do we have any power to enforce the Monroe Doctrine? Don't just shake your head, speak to me. No. Right? We have a very weak military. We're not industrialized. We're going through the market revolution at this time. We are nothing on the world stage, but we're still saying, stay out. Right? It's like when I'm walking my dog, a poodle is like in a front window, like barking furiously at us. Now my dog's 80 pounds. Right, so that poodle's not going to keep me out of their yard if I really want to go into their yard. My dog is bigger than theirs. But it does make a lot of noise and it yaps. That's the U.S. in 1820. in the Manifest Destiny period, we are spreading out, but keep in mind we are spreading out via treaty and via purchase. The Adams-Onis Treaty, the Webster-Ashburton Treaty, settling border disputes, giving us Florida. We settled the Oregon Territory, that 5440 or fight dispute with Polk's campaign, but we settled it peacefully. We just split the Oregon Territory, move on with our lives. The only outlier in the early first half of the 1800s, the only outlier, the only difference is with Texas and the Mexican-American War. Now, Texas we annexed peacefully, in theory, after they've had their own little revolution to become independent. But the Mexican-American War is the only time in which we're using force to expand against another foreign country. That's why it's an outlier in American policy. We talked about that in period 5. Because it's the one time we're using force, we're using the military. But keep in mind, even that time, we tried to buy the Mexican cession first. We sent John Slidell to Mexico City to negotiate a purchase of California. And what does Mexico say? No, it's not for sale. And we're very offended by it. What do you mean it's not for sale? We want to buy it. So we just fight them in a war and take it anyway. There. But it's important that we show that even in that war conflict, we do attempt to buy it first. I'm not saying that justifies America's actions whatsoever. I'm saying it demonstrates a continuity in the way America attempts to solve their foreign policy problems. In general, economically, we have limited involvement in other countries because we're still a little dog. We are still that poodle. Right? We still need tariffs to protect our industry, and we're still heavily reliant on Europe for manufactured goods and for a market for our raw materials, specifically cotton and then textiles. Economically speaking, we still need Europe. We're still the little brother. During the 1850s, we're a little self-consumed with our own problems. What's happening in the 1850s that make us a little bit busy there, Adrian? What is preoccupying our attention in the 1850s?
I guess the conflicts that arise from sections.
Yeah, right. We're careening towards civil war. Compromise 1850, Kansas-Nebraska Act, Bleeding Kansas, Dred Scott, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Where's Elisa? Oh, mentioning her favorite book. So yes, in the 1850s, we're a little busy not worried about foreign policy. But even with that time period, we still have a couple things that are worth noting. Franklin Pierce and the Gadsden Purchase. That's super important. If you don't know the Gadsden Purchase, we're going to fight. The Gadsden Purchase, again, but settling our disputes economically. And the Perry Expedition. He sends Commodore Perry to Japan to try to establish some diplomatic and economic relations with the Japanese. But in general, this is demonstrating continuity in real policy of neutrality. And even when we fought Mexico, who were we fighting? Mexico, not a European power. That's important. So it's important that through all this we understand that the U.S. is not a part of Europe's imperialistic expansion in the mid-1800s. We're not. Europe is imperializing much of the world. We're not involved. A couple of reasons why not. Civil War, Reconstruction, we're a little busy industrializing, and we have a whole continent that needs figuring out first. But, I don't know, 1890s, Frederick Jackson Turner's frontier thesis, the frontier is closed. Oh no. Where are we going to send our degenerates? No frontier to send these idiots. Send them to the Philippines. We have enough resources and land and people to sell stuff to until we massively industrialize. To that point about industrialism playing a role. Absolutely. But tell me real quick, I know you guys had fantastic world history teachers last year, especially Montes. Where is Europe imperializing largely in the mid-1800s? There's two main areas. Africa and Asia, which includes India, yes. So Africa, I know Montes teaches the Scramble for Africa with the same cartoon every single year. I've seen him do it every single year. Yep, the little grabbing everything up. That's the Scramble for Africa. So Europe is largely preoccupied with the Scramble for Africa. If we take a step back in time, we could correlate England's desire to take over Africa with America being a little busy fighting a civil war to not supply them with cotton. Hence Egypt, and then therefore the Scramble for Africa. Things are all interconnected. Same idea with India. So Asia specifically, And Africa and the Middle East, to a smaller extent, for England as well, are the areas that are being imperialized, and the U.S. is not involved yet. But we're still expansionists. Big difference between expansionist and imperialism. We already went over that in the do now. Right? Expanding your territory is one thing. Imperializing an established set of people is another thing entirely. Our examples of expansionism are the Louisiana Purchase, annexation of Texas, Mexican Cession, and of course the Gadsden Purchase, which is in capital letters because it's by far the most important thing up here. I'm kidding, it's the least important thing up here, Terry, it's just a joke. Two outliers to this conversation are in 1867, William Seward purchases Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. Everybody makes fun of him. They call it Seward's Icebox. Why? Because it's cold in Alaska. It's a pretty good joke. Get it? Icebox? It's cold. You know? Okay. The jokes in the 1870s just aren't, 60s just aren't that great. And he gets rewarded when he's dead by then, but much later they find oil in Alaska, and that vindicates the purchase. But we buy Alaska to keep Russia out of our continent. And in 1898, we annex Hawaii, which I know you guys read about. I'd love to spend more time on it, but it's not appropriate given the time constraints of the class. But Hawaii is its own independent republic / monarchy, depending on how you want to look at the way things are run. They have a queen. Life is good in Hawaii. Some American businesses, specifically Dole, the Dole plantation, Dole pineapples. You guys ever eat canned pineapples? All right, the slices, I guarantee you they're almost always from Dole. Dole is an American business on Hawaii, and they want to become part of America, so they establish a coup. They overthrow the queen, they put the queen in captivity, and then what do you know? It's the next U.S. state. So Hawaii demonstrates some nice shadiness of American foreign policy. But we can talk about that later if you're really curious, which I doubt you are, and I'll just move along. The Hawaii is important, though, because it demonstrates a stopping point in the Pacific Ocean as the U.S. establishes economic footprint in the rest of the world, right? Boats need fuel. You can't go to a gas station in the middle of the ocean. They don't exist. So things like the Hawaiian Islands, the Samoan Islands, the Philippine Islands, the other islands in the Pacific will establish places for refueling. Later, they'll establish things like military bases. Pearl Harbor. Who's seen the movie Pearl Harbor in here? Terry, that's the worst movie ever. Never watch that again. It's awful. It's a nice love story. Did you cry? Terry, did you cry? Terry. What? A tear? Terry shed a tear. That's excellent. So it's important to note that Alaska and Hawaii, we don't really count. It's hard to decide if that counts as imperialism or not. Hawaii comes in as a state. So not necessarily territory, so it's hard to count that as imperialism. And nobody lives in Alaska except Eskimos and polar bears. Anyway, so now we get into the actual imperialism. Why? Why do we do it? 3 categories: social, economic, and military. I'm going to give you 90 seconds with your partner to identify an example of each or a reason for each. 90 seconds, chat it up, go. What social reasons would we use? What economic reasons could we use? Why imperialize militarily? Go.
Which that can go with it.
Yeah, so such as like sugar.
Oh yeah, that was. That was produced by the.
Military would be like how you said in Hawaii, to establish bases. And then I think for military as well, but then it also connect to the community that they wanted to build.
Oh, the community.
To connect to the community.
Wouldn't that also be economic too?
30 seconds. I lied, 15.
For social, I'm gonna still go with social tourism.
That's fine.
I was going to tell you too.
All right. Rodas, give me a social reason for imperialism.
Would it be that there's too many, like, there's overpopulation, I guess, in certain areas, so they wanted to expand more?
Yeah.
More territory?
We can blame overpopulation and urbanization and immigration, absolutely. Yeah, that's a social reason. Want this? What's another social reason why America might imperialize? There's a couple of easy ones. What? More people, kind of. TR, what do you think?
I was just thinking, like, more people and culture.
Okay, Josh.
White man's burden.
White man's burden. Right? This idea of international Darwinism. It's our job. Our society is better than yours. Here, let us tell you all about it while we imperialize you. Oh, you don't like that? Yes, you do. Just you wait. Sounds like Jehovah's Witness. Okay. Sounds like Jehovah's Witness. That's fair too. Other social reasons? Anybody? Anybody? Go. Yellow journalism? Absolutely. Like inciting society against other people? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So what I put was this white man's burden and manifest destiny. I put them hand in hand. Because one is the extension of the other. So there's that. White supremacy. We're better than you. Let us tell you all about it. Religion, guys, is another huge one. Anytime there's social factors, religion almost always plays a role. That we have a duty to spread our religion to the rest of the world. So much for church and state. And another easy one that you guys missed is the frontier's closed. We have no safety valve. Where are we going to send people that are unsuccessful in mainstream society now that we have no frontier? I don't know. Send them to Guam. It'll be great. Where's Guam? I don't know. Send them there. Not remember Horace Greeley, go west, young man? No, now it's Horace Greeley, go to Guam, man. Get out. Economic reasons. Give me an economic reason, please. Lady Vargas.
To expand their industries.
Industry. Good. What else do we need to expand stuff?
Goods, raw materials.
Goods and raw materials. We need raw materials, and we need to sell our stuff somewhere. Ooh. For all the bonus review points, what is that system called? Mercantilism. We hated mercantilism when we were the ones at the bottom, the raw material supplier. But now we're like, social Darwinism, man. Survival of the fittest. America. Get on my level, Vargas. Good. The U.S. needs raw materials. Specifically, later in places like the Philippines, rubber, oil, always. And much equally as important, we need markets. We need customers. We got to sell our stuff. The Panic of 1893 is really the spark moment for this exposure of this need. Now, what is every single panic in American history caused by? Over something. Over expansion, over production, over extension, over. So in 1893, we realized we're producing too much stuff for the amount of people that we have to buy that stuff. Now, there's two solutions to that problem. My solution is, it's really revolutionary. Produce less stuff.
Wow.
I expect the Nobel Peace Prize in economics any day now. The other solution, create more markets. Create more markets, more places to sell our stuff. Back to our farmers and the corn and the populace analogy, right? The more corn you grow, the less your corn costs. Here, if you just produce less things, you don't need to worry about the Panic of 1893. Of course, there's more factors than that, but it's a simplistic look. And now that we are an industrialized big boy, we got our big boy pants on, now we tie our own shoes. Terry only has one shoe. Now that we are our own industrial power, we need to compete with Europe, and that requires imperialism. Militarily, it's quite simple. According to a very important name, using your book, Alfred Thayer Mahan. He publishes a historical look on empire that is titled The Influence of Sea Power Upon History. And he argues that every single empire, whether it's the Greeks or the Romans or the British, or now he argues the US, every single empire has one thing in common, and that's control of the seas. Now he argues with the Romans it's as simple as control of the Mediterranean Sea. But when you control the sea, you control trade, you control it militarily, you control economically, you control, if you can just control the sea, you control everything. And he says the US, if they're going to make that next step empire-wise, is going to need to really invest in a legitimate navy. Like I said earlier, these boats need places to get gas. These boats need refueling stations and resource stations. So that is a very important piece of writing in American history. We talk a lot about the important foundational books. They'll come in handy for you later in life, or maybe May 11th, I promise. But that's a very important one because it convinces the U.S. to invest in their Navy, to start creating or building steel warships. Who might that make happy? Carnegie. Yeah, what do you know? So this is the first time, and it won't be the last,